Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and this is a preview of Gudnak. That's right, this is a preview of Gudnak by Chaotic Good Games, and I am Professor Meg. Welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and please keep in mind this is a sponsored preview. This is also a prototype copy, so all components are subject to change, but that being said, I'm going to get right into the preview. Now this is Gudnak. This is a card game where each player will have 20 cards mixed between fighters and tactics, and they will be using that on a 3x3 grid to fight out for victory. Now basically what's happening is you are using your deck as your resources, as if you run out of your deck, you will lose, and you are using your different fighters to combat with the opponent and playing the different tactics to lay siege to their fortress first before they're able to lay siege to yours. Now that may seem simple, it is a little bit of a fun triangle of actions, and it has that thing where one thing that attacks another, rock, paper, rock, paper, scissors style, where your soldiers will do extra damage, I believe, to your hunters do extra damage to your brutes, and your brutes do extra damage to your soldiers. So you'll have basic different fighters like that, and you'll also have some with special abilities. Every deck will have 5 special heroes that have a bit of a unique play for each of the different factions that you're playing as, and that's where your special abilities will come from. Now 3x3 is pretty tight. You're playing on a 3x3 grid, and there is this rock, paper, scissors style fighting mechanic, and it is also a bit checkers influenced, where you can fight only orthogonally, and you need to be moving your different fighters up to be able to attack the different other fighters on the opponent's team, or be able to lay siege to their fortress. Now it is, I guess, a little bit more like chess, where they all have different abilities and things that they're doing, but you are moving around on this 3x3 grid. One thing to note for Gudnak is that all of the different factions feel very different. They behave differently, such as this one, it will get different fighters for you back out of the discard, basically raising from the dead like a necromancer, whereas this faction was about summoning cultists, which you can sacrifice to do different things, and the other factions also have unique abilities as well. There are also neutral cards that you're able to add to your decks. For example, there's this farmer and donkey that was added to this deck, so there are neutral cards that everyone has access to as well if you're looking for certain actions to be able to do that you can add as a staple to your different decks. In Gudnak, that is basically it. You have these 20 cards that you are using to try to strategically outwit your opponent, and it is very much a head-to-head battle where, yeah, you may feel like you're getting crushed because you don't have as many fighters out, but then you're able to mitigate what your opponent is doing with different tactics, and then it is a balance of whose deck runs out first. Perhaps your opponent drew too many cards, because if they're ever not able to draw a card, they will then lose the game. You can see here that your fortress is what would hold your deck. This is at the end of a game, but if it were at the beginning, your deck would be stacked here on top of your fortress, and when your deck ends, you would lose the game. Another way to lose the game is if you ever have an enemy in your siege area. This is the gates of your fortress. This front is your front lines, and then you have your gate, which is right in front of the fortress. And if you are there, the enemy can lay siege to you unless you can defend. Now to defend, you would discard as many cards from your hand as you're able to, equal to their power to destroy this creature. Now you can see that this fighter is a crusher brute with a 2 strength, and this player only has 1 card left in their hand. That means they would not be able to discard to destroy him, and they would have their fortress sieged. This game can play pretty quickly, as there are only 20 cards, and it can be very dangerous that you also go through your deck on your own, just trying to mill for different things and what you can do. In different games, I have felt I have advantage because I have more creatures out that are stronger, but I will be drawing all of my cards to be able to do so I'm in a very sticky situation. Whereas sometimes I feel I have plenty of cards to draw, but not as many fighters out on the ground, and then I also feel like I'm stuck and not sure what to do, but I may be able to pace out my opponent. Another thing to note is if your enemy is at your fortress and there are still cards here, instead of laying siege to the fortress, they would just discard the top card, which is a way for it to mill through your cards again, because that is a resource for you. But if you do still have a deck in play, you aren't in danger quite yet. Now in combat in Gudnak, it is very easy. It is just a straight damage for damage. Whoever does more damage wins the battle, so when you engage in the battle, if you're the one starting it, you should know that you are going to win. For example, you can see that these cultists have a 1 here. That means my cultist has 1 strength, and if he fought another fighter of 1 strength, they would trade and both die. However, my brute is a strength 2, so if he were to fight this strength 1 creature, he would win, stay in play, and this creature would go to the discard pile. Another fun thing to note that is very strategic with how you play the game is that you are able to stack creatures. When you deploy a creature, you have to play them to this initial row from your fortress, but you can play them on top of another creature in that row as well. For example, underneath this cultist, we have, oh gosh, Fludesbron. And this is a creature that was in play, and someone was summoned on top of them before it moved, and therefore you have a stack of fighters. Now when this happens, if this creature had been here to attack with them, they would trade damage because they are the same power. They would go to the respective discard pile and cultist pile, but this creature would now be exposed and be able to attack and move in future turns. So sometimes it can be strategic to put a weaker fighter on top of a stronger one just to protect them from that first attack. This can certainly be a way to surprise your opponent because they may plan to move forward and attack certain things, thinking that it's a good move, and sometimes it certainly is, but it also leaves them vulnerable for what creatures you have underneath your stack and what they're able to do. Now, this has been Gudnak. There are all different kinds of factions that you are able to play. I described 2 of them to you, but you're able to check out the Kickstarter down below that you can see all of the different factions that you're able to play. If you're a card gamer, I do recommend checking this out just to see the different abilities that trigger and how they activate. And they also have in the rulebook a preset suggestion if you're not sure and intimidated by the deck building. So you are able to build your own decks to play with this, and it does have certain guidelines as far as how many strength fighters that you're able to draft for your different decks. But if you do feel intimidated by that, there are suggestions given to you that you're able to play with those first and then get more and more familiar with the different fighters and then add them to the game. Overall, I thought this was a fast-paced battler that was very fun to play through, and I enjoyed the different factions and seeing how they interact. When I play a card game like this, I do like to see the differentiation in the different factions so you can understand that different abilities are tied to the different factions that are played throughout the game, and then you can understand when you're playing your opponent what types of tricks they might have up their sleeve. One final thing to go over are the different tactic cards that you're able to play as well. Now, they are in my discard, so I'm going to go grab some, but you can see, for example, that this player had conversion. So for 2 action points, you get 2 every turn, but for 2 action points, you are able to destroy target enemy that has to be a level 1 that is not in a stack. Then you may deploy a level 1 from your graveyard or hand to that square, which means you could destroy an enemy that could have a cultist over here, destroy them, and then you're able to then summon someone from your stack over to this area. So that's a very strong tactic that they're able to play. You're only able to have 5 tactics in your deck, but they can be very, very strong and game-changing when you draw them. You also do tend to draw all of your cards as you're going through them and your fortress is becoming more and more exposed, so you can definitely plan on drawing all of your tactics and being able to play them on other players. Here's another example, Fratricide. Destroy the lowest power fighter in target stack. If it's a tie, you choose which fighter to destroy. So that's another one that for 2 action points you are able to just destroy an opponent's fighter. Overall, I felt that this game did feel very reminiscent of rock, paper, scissors with the different skill trees that are able to attack each other, and it also played very much like chess but in a much tighter board, and it felt a little similar to me like something like Hearthstone because it definitely gave that card play vibe and the feeling of having different minions that you're able to put out and have them battle each other while you're still trying to protect something. I also think that the protecting of the fortress is a very unique idea, that when you go to get sieged, you are able to mitigate it and stop it, but overall your cards are your resources, and again, being a 20 card deck, the game does play quickly. This has been a preview of Gudnak. Again, you can check out the Kickstarter link down below. I've been Professor Meg, and thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great day.